You might take a few full, satisfying breaths. Dare I say you take a few deep breaths if you're into it. But the invitation is going to be that you really emphasize the exhale. I'll invite you to make a little noise with your breath. Your eyes closed, feel the earth beneath you. And take your mind's eye and burrow into the earth. And just notice what you see as you head down to the molten center. This big piece of granite slinging around in space, moving quite rapidly, creating the force that keeps us grounded. What a miracle. And then take another nice, full, satisfying breath, maybe letting that image go. And just think about the particles in the air, perfectly created to work with your blood cells, the oxygenation of your body, allowing you to dance, meditate, walk, climb, move. What a miracle. Run a half marathon. And then allow your mind's eye to go above into the sky. And go ahead and break through the atmosphere and just check out outer space. Zillions of stars. So many planets slinging about in space. And I'll invite you to see how far your mind's eye can go into this vastness, this realm of possibility. I like to go out to the very edge on my tippy toes and imagine I'm going to dive into a big black hole. And then to ponder, where would you end up on the other side? It's such a miracle. And you can drop all of that and just feel your experience. You say your name to yourself in your animal skin this evening. The good, the bad, the neutral. Noticing any sensation of sight, light and shadow. Noticing any scent in your space, in your room. Noticing leftover taste in your mouth. Noticing all the little and big sounds that make up your experience this evening. My voice, sounds in your space, maybe even the sounds within you. And then feeling the air on your skin. And this evening, we'll take just a moment here of stillness and silence, maybe 1 minute. And just feel into the camaraderie. Whether it's this group or just the communities that you walk in, play in, enjoy, the things that people bring to your life. We'll sit here for just a minute. When you're ready, beginning to wiggle fingers and toes. A lot of practice. I haven't done this in a while. Okay, here we go. Feel free if you want to take some notes. My slides are not comprehensive. There'll be a lot more information than what's in the notes, but of course you can just sit and enjoy, and please just come off of mute. Don't raise hands, interrupt me if you have questions. Oops. Let's see if I can actually have this be full screen. 1 moment. Okay, can everybody see? Awesome. So this is a really funny image. Flavia photoshopped it. I wasn't really hanging out in my little shorts at, I think that camp was about 19,000 feet. And we got a bunch of snow, but I think it's a great shot and it's really fun. So this is sort of the beginning of the beginning. So Aconcagua is just shy of 7,000 meters, which is about 22,837 feet. And it's at the border of Argentina and Chile. So you actually, most people end up flying into Chile, and then you take kind of a puddle jumper over the Andes into Argentina, and you're based out of Mendoza. And if you are into wine, olive oil, and meat, specifically beef, I highly recommend that you go to Mendoza. What a place. Oh my goodness gracious. Real gauchos, real cowboys, meaning they've got like their gaiters on, they've got their knife, they've got their bandana. Many of them wear a certain style of hat, and they will cook blood sausage, other kinds of sausage, all of these amazing cuts of meat over an open flame for hours. And then they serve it on this huge platter, right? It's not very Buddhist-y, but it's just the culture of the Mendoza area. So the picture that you see here on the left is actually on the hike out from Aconcagua, and that is Aconcagua right here. That's the big mountain. And then the picture on the right is the base camp after you have summited. So the route that I took, you go up an area called the Ameghino Valley, and then you kind of circumambulate the mountain, you summit, and then you come back down and you come out the other side. So you don't do an out and back, which I found very interesting and quite delightful. These structures are permanent. They may take down the kind of the padding and things like that. And I can't remember what it's called. What's the stuff that you use, like if you're moving, the moving fabric? Anyone know? It's almost like insulated.
Bubble wrap?
No, it's like
Okay.
cloth.
It's cloth.
Like a
Like a
wool
moving
felt, like a felt, wool felt.
Yeah. So all of these structures are internally insulated, and then which is great because you can be in there even at 20,000 feet where it's quite cold. It's warm inside of those structures.
I just wanted to take a minute because, sometimes I think, not just me, but other people as well, post on social media the fun stuff, right? The mountaineering, the sunrises, the summits, the the training that looks kind of badass, and that's all fun stuff. But we're here at Camp 1, which is 16,325 feet. You can hear it's almost like hailing out. This is my tent. Now I paid a porter to bring up some of my gear because of my ankle injury. I can't have that much weight. But it's cold. I'm dirty. The altitude is real. And this is home sweet home for the next 2 nights as we do a carry up to Camp 2. So we'll rest. It's about 4:30 at night. We'll eat around 7, go to bed, get up, breakfast, and then we go up to Camp 2, which I think is about just over 17,000 feet. And then we come back down and we do it again the next day, but that time with gear. So I share this just because it's not all glorious.
So the title of this talk is 5 Buddhist Insights from 22,000 feet. And for those of you who are Buddha heads, you know this. And if you're not, no big deal. I'll just share that when the Buddha woke up under the Bodhi tree, I think people have the idea that it was like this mystical experience, almost heaven-like. But in my tradition, they say that the Buddha woke up and the first thing that the Buddha said was that life is suffering. And so he sat with this idea for several days because he thought, who the hell wants to hear that message? Like, this was not the Good News Bible. This was something different. And I'm going to go off this. And for those of you who are we're friends, you know that I had a very, very challenging group. So we had 11 people, including myself, that were going for the summit. 8 of the 11 were Estonians, and 9 of the 11 were men. And the 3 Americans were myself, an older gentleman named Jim, and a young 30-year-old named Kason, who, for whatever reason, from the moment I met him, did not like me. So I had 3 people who spoke my language. Sorry, 2, because I'm one of them. And now I'm down to 1. And at first I was like, wait a minute, am I paranoid? No, I was not paranoid. He really just did not like me. And to this day, I'm not entirely sure why. And it probably doesn't really matter. But 3 weeks on a mountain where the 2 people that you can speak the language and kind of culturally are similar, and now you're down to 1. So the first takeaway around suffering is not just the suffering itself, which we all experience, right? And I just heard you all talk about, it's cold, maybe you're sick, maybe, school isn't going to be in session on Tuesday, so now you're scrambling to figure it out, these sorts of things. But what I found at the other side was, what you do with that suffering is what defines the suffering. And so I had this really wonderful opportunity to sit with what it's like not to be liked. And like in your face, not liked, rude, unforgiving, sarcastic, unkind for 3 weeks in close quarters. And then the Estonians, it was interesting because the Estonians, any stereotype you have about Estonians, I found very true. So to me, I was like, well, I think they're kind of like Russians, and they're sort of drink a lot, and they're kind of not very warm and fuzzy. And that was exactly my experience of the Estonians. And there was a 30-year-old who was quite athletic and did summit. I did not. You'll see that. I was 1,000 feet shy. So I made it to 21,800 and some odd feet. And I was 1,000 feet short. And that sounds like no big deal, right? What's a football field? Not much more than that, right? But it would have been another 2.5 hours up and then about 6 hours back. And by the time I got back to camp, I was almost crawling. So it was the right call. And that's one of the things that happens in mountaineering is that you oftentimes are close to the summit. But are you really close to the summit? And so it's this thing where you're like kind of in this pressure cooker. And so the young Estonian man and the American man collectively decided not to like me, which got even more interesting. And I'd never had that experience on an expedition before. And it was really, really hard. So the first takeaway from the Buddha, life is suffering. And then what do you do with it? And so what I used it as an opportunity to just really notice what runs me in terms of wanting to be liked and how hard it is on me to not be liked. And that this is a pattern since I was a little girl. And so the invitation, I'm trying to take what I did and relate it to you all. The invitation is for you to look at where in your life you're in the pressure cooker. And then not to shut down. I was nice to those men until the final team dinner. And I was even nice at the final team dinner when one of them screamed at me after I went like this to touch him. He said, "Don't fucking touch me." I was even nice then. But the next day, I wrote a very direct letter to the Estonian leader. And I said, "You're responsible for your culture. And I don't care if you've summited Everest. Because you've created a culture that's unkind and misogynist. And that's on you." So in no way, shape, or form did the Buddha ever say to be a rug or to be a doormat. But how we connect with others is what's important. Okay, let's see what's next. Oop, not bad. Try it again.
I have 2 questions.
I might have an answer.
Was there anyone else that did not summit?
Yes.
And oh, go ahead.
There were 11 of us. 6 people summited. The gentleman, I use it very loosely, that screamed at me to not touch him, he ended up with something called pulmonary edema. So he actually had to take a helicopter out of camp. So he did not even attempt the summit. There was another gentleman who's actually very nice. I don't think his English was very good, but he always was smiling and he was very friendly towards me. And he was gassed. So he made it to high camp, which was, I think, just over 19,000 feet. And then there were 3 of us who attempted the summit, but we only got to the cave. And the cave is about 1,000 feet short of the summit. That was question 1. What's question 2? I'm happy you're asking questions.
Question 2 is you're a team. So how do you relate to each other as a team? And were the people that summited upset that the other people didn't summit?
No, there's 2 things that happen with teams in my experience. One is it is a team. So even though it's an individual sport, it takes a team to summit. You at least need, I don't know, a little bit of support or a couple of people. But there was definitely in this group more of an individualistic flavor, let's say, than I've experienced before. So usually, in my experience, you're like lifting each other up. Like you're like, because it's hard. You're going to see some more hard photos, that you can really tell I'm suffering. It's hard. And so typically in mountaineering, unless you have a big ego and you think you're really special, you're encouraging one another. But that was not my experience with this group. My guides were very encouraging. They were awesome. They were totally kick-ass.
I think I have one more question too. I guess I'm not exactly sure what summiting is. So could you explain what it actually means to summit?
Yes. So you reach the cumbre, the peak of the mountain is to summit.
And are you like pulling each other up on ropes and rappelling down, or?
Well, this is a very good question. Where are you? On this particular mountain, no. This was not a technical mountain. In other words, you wear crampons and you have an ice axe. And if you were to slip, you have to know how to self-arrest, which basically means you cram that ice axe into the ground and you kick your toe points into the snow to stop yourself from sliding down the mountain. But we weren't roped up. And yeah, it on this particular mountain, we were not roped up. On other mountains I've been on, I've been roped up. And then, Lena, to answer your question, then there could be repercussions for people not summiting, because then it might affect the whole team. But anyone who wanted to summit on this particular opportunity did. Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet. Good questions. Okay, let's see what's next. So suffering is a thing, and how you manage it matters. Okay, number 2. The higher you climb, the higher the stakes. The higher you climb, the higher the stakes. And so too for our spiritual path. So the picture to the far left is looking down from Camp 2, Camp 1. And this white stuff, they're called penitentes. Penitentes. And they're pretty interesting because you don't find them all over the world. You find them on Aconcagua, and you actually have to navigate through them. They are pointy, upward-facing snow spikes, and they're formed from wind and sun. And so even though they look short here, they're actually, like some of them would be as tall as me, and you have to navigate your way through this maze of penitentes. The second picture is starting to go up towards Camp 2. And I'll tell you a little story about Camp 2 in just a sec. And then this third photo, I think is high camp. So you can really see that, like, all of a sudden you kind of look like you're in Mars. The mountain gets weirder as you go up higher. So, let me stop sharing. So we started at about 8,000 feet, which is kind of like what I live at. So if you've been to Denver, Denver is just under 6,000 feet. And so you start walking in, and I think the first part of the trek is about 5 hours. Then the next day is like another 6 hours. And then like the next day is like another 6 hours. And then you're at base camp. So you're actually walking in for 3 days before you're even in camp. And, you know, you're looking at the gear list, and the gear list has like your big puffy jacket and your big, you know, your boots that are $1,200 because they're double insulated. They're called double walled boots, and gloves and mittens and all of this really warm weather, I mean, cold weather stuff. The memo I missed was that the first 3 days, it would be like 95 degrees. Yes. By the way, that's part of the motivation that I really wanted to summit, is so that I never have to go back and do the damn thing again. So I'm super bummed I have to go back. So the first, you know, it's Argentina. So we're in winter right now. They're in summer. It is hot in Mendoza. It is really hot in Mendoza. So we're walking in, and I had like these small tubes of sunscreen, because in my experience, mountaineering, you're usually putting sunscreen like on your hands, maybe on your like forearms, your face, your ears, and your neck, but everything else is covered up. So the first day, it was like 95, windy, and dust. I have never experienced dust like there is on Aconcagua. I still am coughing up dust. Second day, it's even hotter. So it's like in this like baking sauna. The wind is blowing, the dust is getting in your lungs. By the way, the dust is filled with mule shit, because mules take all of the gear in. And that day that we arrived at the second night, I decided to bivvy, which just means that I slept under the stars in my sleeping bag. I did that the first night, and I did that the second night. And the structure, right, was hot. So all of my 50-year-old lady friends, just imagine it's 96 degrees, 97 degrees for 6 hours with very little stopping. I want to die. You get to camp, and there is no reprieve. You either go into the structure and it's 110 degrees, or what I opted to do was to sit outside in the blazing sun in the wind with it just beating down on me for the next 5 hours, because there was nowhere to go, because there was no trees. The next day, I was sure I had sunstroke. The next day, then you do a crossing of a river. Because of my ankle, I decided to go on the mule, which was great, because the muleteer was this very young, good-looking gaucho cowboy, which was super fun. He and the mule took me across the river crossing, so I didn't hurt my ankle. And then that was when we got to base camp. And by the time we got to base camp, I had altitude sickness. And so I nosedived into my tent and was not seen from or heard from for an entire like 12 hours. I just slept. And then I was fine. I felt good. The way that mountaineering works is you sleep low and you carry high. So what you're trying to do is to build up red blood cells. That's what acclimatization is. You have to build up your red blood cells. Okay? So that's what your body is doing. It's like this crazy thing. And in order to do that, you literally just have to sit and hang out at altitude. So you get to base camp. Base camp's about 14,000 feet. The next day was a rest day. Thank God. I've never been so excited about a rest day, I think, in my entire life. And I just hung out in my tent and like did yoga, chillaxed, avoided my hostile teammates. Like, it was great. I just listened to music the whole time. Read poetry. journaled. It was really lovely. But then the next day it's carry to Camp 1. So you go up to Camp 1, which I think we've decided is about 16,000 plus feet, and you come back down. And then you get up the next day and you do the same damn thing, but then you stay. And the next day, I was so wanting a rest day. I was dying for a rest day, but nope, no rest day. So the next day, Camp 2. So it was 96 degrees like 4 days ago, right? This is about where we are. From Camp 1 to Camp 2, a storm blew in that had sideways sleet hitting your face for like 3 hours. Not even taking breaks because the wind was so intense that you were like doing this. And then you get to Camp 2, they make you hang out for like, I don't know, 2 hours. Why? Because you're growing red blood cells. And then you get to turn back around. And the next day you do it again. So then you hike back up to Camp 2 and you stay. And then I think we finally got a rest day. And I swear to God, I was like, oh, thank God. But part of the thing that happens is then the next camp is 19,000 feet. And when you get above, I don't know, Sean, like somewhere around above 16,000 feet, it isn't really beneficial to hang out up there because your body starts to cannibalize itself. In other words, because of the lack of oxygen, and then I would add in just sheer physical exertion, your body is using up its resources. So there's two things happening simultaneously. You're trying to grow red blood cells, but your body is also breaking down. So the next move that we made, we did not do carry and sleep low, carry high. We just went for it. So we went up to high camp, and then you're at 19,000 feet, and you pray that you can sleep, and then you get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then you go for the summit. So you can see how increasingly with that journey, it's getting more and more serious. In my experience as a Buddhist, as a practitioner, and you don't have to be Buddhist. Good Lord, nobody's trying to make you a Buddhist. But as you progress on your spiritual path, in my experience, the stakes go higher. And what that looks like in my world are unfriendly teammates. Things like that really challenge us to say, can you stay grounded and kind and loving when it is so hard, right? Oh, please do not. All right. Buddhist takeaway number 3, always plug in your damn computer. Here we go. Oh, I've missed you all so much. Okay. Higher you climb, the higher the stakes. So too for your spiritual paths, friends. Okay, number 3, how you walk on this earth matters. This should just be number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. How you walk on this earth matters. Okay, this is Maddie. Maddie, my guide, and Maddie, my friend on the left. The picture in the middle are 3 of the camp, like base camp cooks at 7 o'clock in the morning in the cold, dancing their ass off to Michael Jackson with joy in their feet and step and heart. These are the people you want on your team. And the picture on the right was interesting. It's from my birthday. Maddie over here, you see this red tent. He took me to a hidden cafe at 14,000 feet. And in the cafe was this sign that the journey of life is inward with this wonderful gnome. And the subtitle to this is that your actions affect others. So what kind of karma are you planting? And there's a lot of misunderstanding around karma. Karma is created through our actions, through the way that we speak, and through the way that we think. Maddie, every single day, made sure that I felt special, that I was seen, felt, heard. And he knew that I was really struggling. And so on my birthday, in the afternoon, he looks at me and he goes, I want to take you to a cafe. And I said, well, that's awesome. Like thinking when we get back to Mendoza, that's nice, right? And he's like, so put your boots on, let's go. And I'm like, Maddie, come on. And we go across camp and we walk into this tent and there's this beautiful young woman. Her name's Jessica. And she goes, Maddie. This is how everyone responds to Maddie. He has 2 little kids. He has a beautiful wife. He is just a delight. You can see it in his smile. Jessica gives me this huge hug. I start crying because I haven't been hugged by anyone in a long time. I haven't been liked by anyone in a long time. These are all the stories I'm telling myself. Maddie has a cup of coffee. I have a birthday beer. There's people playing chess. The ground, the floor of the cafe is like this beautiful, like walnut flooring. It's not even like plywood. It was wild. How we walk on this earth matters. How we affect others through our body, speech, and mind matters. And it's like, for me, my takeaway is, can I just be friendly? Can you just be friendly? The world needs no more grouchy faces in the grocery store. The world needs no more Estonian assholes on the mountain. The world really needs us all to plant the karmic seeds of goodness for one another. Joseph being here, he used to say, if he could just not add to the suffering in the world. And for the first, decade of our life together, I was like, that is just a low ball. Like, I really had judgments around it. But damn, it's hard to do. It is hard to not contribute negatively in this rough and tumble world. So that's the invitation. Karma matters. Every move we make plants karma, according to the Buddha. Okay, number 4, wait. Trust me, it's going to change. So whatever you're facing right now that isn't like awesome, it'll change. And whatever you're facing right now that's amazing, it will change. This is a huge tenet of Buddhism. Huge tenet of Buddhism. So the first picture on the left is my ankle on August 15th. I had canceled my trip. I had cried a lot to many of you. I was sniveling. And then the 3rd week in October, things got better. It improved quite a bit. It didn't improve enough to summit, but improved enough to get to 21,600 and some odd feet. Okay. The next picture is from that cafe. You can see Jessica. She's making coffee, and Maddie, and you see how happy I look. And just 2 hours before, I was crying in my tent because the assholes had said something awful to me. Okay. It'll change. You just got to wait. This next picture is me after the big sideways snowstorm, where it had been 96 degrees like 4 days prior. And then all of a sudden it was like sleep for 3 hours as we were like going up to 16,000 plus feet. And then you'll see this next picture is after summit day. The walkout was, ready? 17 miles in one day. Even for me, I was like, holy shit, that's a really big day. Like, I'm trying to think if I've ever, I think I hiked the Grand Canyon once and that was like 28 miles or something, but like 17 miles out. So that's what this picture is. The picture of the three of us, these are the three people who made it to the cave, but we didn't summit. Jim is the friendly American, nice guy. The poor guy in the middle, Martin, he was also a kind Estonian that I ended up being friends with. The reason we're laying there is because no one can move. It's not to take a cute picture. I was like, if you want to take a picture of me at this altitude, you're going to have to just like come to me. So that's why that picture is like that. And then the picture on the right is the morning after summit, you descend 5 hours to base camp. And it's called Plaza de Mules. There are showers. This is me post shower. Yes, that's a beer that I had in the shower with me. I am like the happiest girl on earth at this point. There was amazing food. There's music. There's helicopters flying in and out constantly. You almost feel like you're on Everest. It was very, very snazzy. There's an art gallery. There's an art gallery, and you're at like 15,000 feet. So you just have to wait a minute. It's going to change. And that works both ways. It means that when you have something amazing, when you have someone amazing in your life, when you are having an experience that knocks your socks off, feel deep gratitude for that. And if you're a crazy Buddha head like me, dedicate the merit. I woke up almost every day, even in the sadness, even in the suffering, even in the challenges, going, this is my life. This is my life. When you have that feeling, cherish it because it's going to change. You'll get back down here. Don't you worry. All right.
Well, this is my turnaround, but as you can see, it's quite beautiful. It's also 21,868 feet in the air, and I'm feeling okay with it all. With my ankle injury, I didn't think I'd even be able to come, and so to have another 2.5 hours up, plus probably a solid 4 down, and my ankle is just throbbing at this point, didn't seem wise. So grateful for every lesson learned along the way.
The juice is in the journey, friends. The juice is in the journey. It's not the destination. So whatever you're moving towards, the juice is in the journey itself. It's in every step. And sometimes those steps don't feel good. And sometimes those steps are amazing. And a lot of times there's boredom. And a lot of times there's confusion. I've never been original, so I can't imagine that this is only my experience. Well, I think I'll end on this. We can look at things from, I think, 2 perspectives. That things are happening for us or things are happening to us. And in my experience, when you turn it, that it's happening for you, doesn't make it easier, doesn't make the suck less, but it brings meaning to each obstacle along the way, as much as the meaning is in the beautiful sunset, in the friendships formed, in that perfect moment when the sleet hits your face just right, reminding you that indeed you are alive today. The juice is in the journey, not the destination. So the summit, the cumbre, it'll still be there. It's a big piece of granite. All right. So one more slide and then I'll come off and we can chat. So what's next? I had to really think about it. But this is what's next for me. This mountain is called Manaslu. It is the 8th highest mountain on Earth. I don't know, it's somewhere around 27,000 feet in the air. I figure if I could get up to almost 22,000 feet, what the hell, let's add another 5,000 feet in there. What could go wrong? Hopefully I'll have a better team. That's what I got.
Where's that mountain?
Nepal.
Sun.